And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Well, we're looking at another version of a very popular game that came out almost 15 years ago now, called Carcassonne. And today we're looking at the newest version. It's a standalone game. It's from their Around the World series, and this is called Carcassonne Gold Rush, which takes place in the United States, trying to get some gold. It is 2 to 5 players, 35 minutes or so, pretty much standard Carcassonne. Let me show you what's different about this one and how it compares and contrasts to regular Carcassonne and the other Around the World series, the South Seas. So let's take a look. At the beginning of the game, everybody picks a color cowboy and they place it at the start of the scoreboard. It's a cool little thing that the artwork on here is nice, where you're going through the little waterways looking for gold. And you will take the last other 4 cowboys of your color along with a little tent. You'll stack up all the Carcassonne tiles over here. This is the cool looking start tile with the gold nugget on it. And then you would flip this over. Now, every time you see a mountain region, you put as many of these miner tokens for however many nuggets there are. There's 1 nugget. We put 1 mining token on this mountain. And here are the rest of the mining tokens. They're face down. They'll be added later. They're off to the side of the board. Those get added every time we do add a mountain tile. So in this Carcassonne Gold Rush, you're going to pull one of the tiles, you're going to look at it, and you're going to place it. Now, legal placements are essentially you have to touch like objects. So example, this is all grass here. This can touch all grass. I could go there. This, I could not do this because the mountain can't match the grass. Just like I couldn't go here because this is a railroad and it has to touch another railroad there, so I couldn't put it here or here because that's illegal. Now I could put it here because now that extends that mountain there, and I could not put it there because the grass does not touch, there's no mountain there, it's just grass touching mountain. So if I had placed it here like this, I have the option of, if I want, to place, first of all, as we said, there's 2 nuggets there, so 2 of these mining tokens would come out onto that mountain. And if I want, I can put my cowboy right on the mountain. And then that could, because you can place it on the tile that you just placed. I've now sort of claimed this mountain here, but I can't score points or do anything like that until this mountain finishes. So now it's the next player turn. They'll pull up a tile and they will place it. Let's say they pull this tile here, and maybe they go like this to make the railroad there, and they can place a guy on the railroad. Now he could have placed it here on this mountain like that if he wanted to, but he didn't. Of course, there's 1 nugget, so one of these will come out there too. And there's another place you can put it too. We'll talk about that later. So mountain, or in this case, he went to the railroad. Now let's just say on future turns, things have been getting built here. I'm not doing it turn by turn, but let's say in the future these different tiles were laid, and at this point, this got finished right here. Of course, when these tiles came out, we would have had mining tokens on them. But let's say this now gets completed. Now that it's completed, this person would now score, pull his guy back and score. Now, normally it would be 1 point for each of these railroads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He would go up 6. In this game, if there's 1 exactly locomotive on that railroad, it's double. So this would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 points. If there's if there's either 0 locomotives or more than 1 locomotives, it's still just 1 per. But if there's only exactly 1, you get double. So that red player would have been able to go 12 points, and he's all the way up to there. Now let me show you, I'm not going to go turn by turn how it works. I'm just going to show you how some of the other things score and the different things that you can do in your turn. A different type of tile is a city tile. These cities, Carson City, sometimes have 3 railroads coming out of them. Sometimes they have 4 of them coming out of them. We got there, we got El Paso, there's other sorts of cities. Now this will score, and you can, let's say I put my guy here, I can score and take this guy off as soon as all 3 of these are closed, meaning closed off as we showed you before. Maybe this came like this, and then maybe another one closed it off. For example, maybe over the course of the game, this happened. Now that's 2 of them. I still couldn't score it. Once this final one got closed, you always just get 3 points for each one going into the city. So I've closed these 2. If I close this one, I'd get 3, 6, 9 points and pull them off. Now let's get to these mountains. Let's say someone places this here, and just so you can see it better, this is a closed off mountain now. There were 2 here, there's 1 there, and there's one here. Now, because this is closed, this person gets to score. And how they score is, first of all, they get all of the mining tokens that are on there. So he gets to take all these and he can look at them, but they're secret. These all range from from 0 to 5. So there's a bunch there, and there's some that are completely empty, like this one is 0. On average, it's almost 2 points per one there. I think it's like 1.85 points. So he'd get those, he'd keep them face down, he wouldn't show anybody, but those are points that he'll get at the end of the game. Gets all the ones in there, then he'll get the amount of points as to how many nuggets. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he'd get 4 points for closing it off, and he'd get his cowboy back. So he would, boom, go right up to 4. But let's say that didn't happen. Let's say it's the red player's turn, and he continues this on. Well, why would he want to do that? Well, just maybe, first of all, we know that 2 tokens come out because there's two of these, like that. And so what we have here is this. Now, instead of placing a cowboy, they can place a tent. Their tent on any section of a mountain, as long as there's not another tent or another cowboy there. So this is a legal placement. Now, on a future turn, if he does not place one of his cowboys and he doesn't move or move this tent, he can then take any one of these tokens off of the mountain here and put it into his supply. So it essentially allows you to steal the mining tokens that this person eventually is going to get if he closes this mountain. But if you have a tent there, every turn that you don't place a cowboy or don't move your tent, you can steal one of these. So you might be able to rob him blind and do this. Now, if there's another one, yes, the green guy can put a tent there and he can start doing it too, but what does he want to do there? So that's an interesting thing that the tent can do and that you can do with the mountains. Now, the last thing that you can do with your cowboy is when you place a tile, you can lay them flat on the sort of the farming or the grass side. We'll talk about what happens at the end game scoring. Actually, let's talk about that now. If the game were to end, the game ends when the last tile is placed out of all the tiles in the game. It would be a lot larger than this, but I just want to show you how it would work. Let's say there was a guy here. Let's say there was a guy here. Yeah, and that's fine. And let's say there was a guy here. Now, if the game ended, we have some things that are not completed. This road's not completed. He would get 1 point for each of those road tiles that he's on. If there was a locomotive, you disregard them because he didn't complete it. So he would have gotten 2 points at the end of the game for that. Here, you would discard any mining tokens that are on a mountain. You don't get these, and you would still score the points for every mountaintop that you have per nugget. So he would get 2 points and pull this guy off, but he wouldn't have gotten these. The city, you get 3 points for each closed-in section that's done. So in this case, you'd get 6 points, 3 and 3. And then we would go to the farms. Now, how this works is we look at the contiguous farm area here. So we have a guy here. We see it kind of stops here, it stops here. It kind of goes around and goes like this and kind of goes all the way around. Actually goes just like this. Now, what we can do is you get 2 points for each set of teepees, and you get 4 points for each set of wild horses there. So this would be 4 points, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I think that's it. He would get 10 points for having this guy there, and you move him up like that. You would then flip over all your tokens, count them up, add your points, and whoever has the most points at the end of that is the winner. All right, well, there's Carcassonne Gold Rush. Let me tell you what I think about the game as if it's the only game of its type. And then I will compare and contrast it to regular Carcassonne and then Carcassonne South Seas. So the game itself is very enjoyable. You're laying the tiles, the turns move quick, you're drawing the tiles, you're placing them. It's just a fun and enjoyable game, just like any of those Carcassonne games. I like the fact that there's different ways to go about things, meaning if you don't have a good ideal move to place somebody on, because you only get 4 cowboys to place, maybe they're already out there before, it gives you something to do when all your guys are out there. You can place the tent somewhere, and if you've got another tile and something's not closed and you have nothing to do, you can pull a mine tile out. So I like how it kind of gives you something to do and a way to get points, and by screwing your neighbors at the same time. So I like that aspect of it. Everything else is pretty much straight Carcassonne, so let's get to that. So overall, I like the game as a standalone game. Now, how does it compare? So if you are new to the Carcassonne and you're just getting into the board game hobby and you haven't played Carcassonne yet, and you're like, well, which one should I get? This one actually is, in my opinion, better than the original Carcassonne. Maybe. People in the United States were geographically challenged a lot of times. And you may get spoken to from the theme of being in the United States looking for gold with cities such as, the ones that are in there that have the United States names on there. I can't remember them off the top of my head. Maybe there was Albuquerque or Santa Fe and stuff like that. You might like seeing those, as opposed to building a castle in a town in France that you may or may not have heard of before. Now, from a complexity standpoint, I'd say it's a tad bit more complex, but not so much that you couldn't pick this one up if you've never played Carcassonne and learn it pretty quickly. Keeping in mind that it does have a little bit more of a take that, more of a messing with your buddies. Where the other Carcassonne, sure, you can play it very aggressively, but in nature, it's not too aggressive. Where this one almost sets you up to be aggressive with the tents, where you're constantly going other people's mountains and taking them off, where you're seeing someone that's going to get a double scored locomotive, and you purposely put another road on their road with another locomotive to cancel out their double points. Those two areas are pretty much set up to be combative with each other. So if you play with somebody that is very non-competitive, like my wife, and hates the little take-that mechanisms, you're probably better off with the very original Carcassonne. If that part doesn't bother you, or if you even like that, and you haven't played these games, this might even be the best one to start with, because it's very similar to Carcassonne itself, with just those finite changes. Now, what about this in Carcassonne South Seas that I have here? This one I like quite a bit. This was the first one from that All Around the World series, and that one was so different because you're getting not points, but resources, and then you're trading those resources in for different points depending on what tiles are available. This one, if you've never played Carcassonne before and you're kind of new to the board gaming world, I would wait on this one because it's a little bit more complex. It's not overly crazy, but if you're just getting into it, that might be a little hard for you there. Now, Carcassonne Gold Rush versus Carcassonne South Seas. They're quite different. This one gives you a feeling and much more similar to the original Carcassonne than South Seas does. So if you like Carcassonne, the original one, and you're looking for just a twist and a variant, and maybe you like the theme, then this one would be one you want to go to. If you're looking for something that's a completely different experience that really changes the way Carcassonne plays a lot, then the Carcassonne South Seas is probably a deeper step away from the original Carcassonne. So hopefully I've helped you figure out which ones to get. Now, there are a couple things I did not like about this. Actually, there's one thing I absolutely hated about this version, but it's easily fixable. In Carcassonne South Seas, you only have 4 people to put out. Now, in the regular Carcassonne, you have 7, I think. You have almost less than half of that here. And when you place an islander in that game, if you're stuck or any time, instead of placing a guy, you can take a guy back. And I think they made that rule because you only have 4 guys and you could get stuck out there. And some of those guys can get stuck out for the whole game because of there's no tile that can close off a thing that you have. This game has the same exact people that you can place, 4. And it happened in one of my games. Halfway through the game, 2 of my guys got trapped where they were never gonna get out because someone placed a tile diagonally from one of them, and there was no legal tile that I knew was gonna go there that was gonna lift these 2 guys off of 2 different areas. And I literally played half the game with half my guys, and it just made the game terrible for me. So I'm gonna think that Z-Man overlooked the fact that you could pull a guy back in the Carcassonne South Seas and forgot to put it in these rules. But if they didn't overlook it, they should have put it in there because it really can ruin the game if that happens to you. So I'm going to house rule it. I don't usually do that, but I'm going to use the same rule they do with the same amount of guys in South Seas, where you can take a guy back instead of placing one. Because otherwise, if you get stuck with only half your guys, the game's over and it's not going to be very much fun. Anyways, other than that little niche, the little glitch there, this is actually a great version of Carcassonne. It adds to the original, adds just enough to make it different, adds another cool theme. And I really like it, other than that one pretty big beef I have it that can easily be remedied by a little house rule there. Z-Man, I'd like to see if you're going to implement that rule as a variant like you did in the South Seas. Otherwise, another great addition to Carcassonne.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.